Okay, and there's our peppy welcome music. Hello, and welcome again. I am Alan Levine from OE Global, and I'm here to run another episode of our live show where we bring people on stage and talk about the interesting work that they're going to do. And I'm going to get out of the way and start bringing our guest into the studio now. So, and we have a few more people who are coming, and I'm just really excited to have here Dawne Irving Bell and a bunch of colleagues that I might ask her to introduce to from the UK to talk about this project that I saw Dawne describe about through OE Global, the National Teaching Repository. And that's what we're here to learn about from people who've been directly involved with this fantastic project. So hello, welcome, Dawne. Let us know where you're coming from and then maybe give us an intro to who's here with us.
Okay, well, thank you for inviting us, first of all, because the more we can talk about the National Teaching Repository, the better. The first thing to say, it isn't national, it's international, and anyone and everybody can share their research and resources on it, and in doing so, benefit the learning and teaching community globally, but also gain recognition for their own academic practice. So I'm Dawne. I work at a university called BPP University. It's global, but I have a local site in Manchester in England, so that's where I'm based. And then I'll let the other guys introduce themselves as we go along. Probably Kate was first on my screen there, so she can tell you who she is and where she's from, and then work our way around the people who helped make this happen.
Hi, I'm Kate Cuthbert. I work for Staffordshire University in the UK. I'm currently sat in a room near Nottingham, so that's where I'm based at the moment.
Should we do Laura next? Oh, Laura, you're on mute.
Oh, she's still muted.
Should we go to Nathalie next and then come back to Laura?
That happens.
Hi there, I'm Nathalie Taser. I'm working at the University of Glasgow for our academic and digital development team.
Fantastic. I think I saw Sue pop up there before we move to this format.
Hey everyone, I'm Sue Beckingham and I'm from Sheffield Hallam University, which is in the centre of England, and I'm a principal lecturer and associate professor there and work in the Department of Computing.
Fantastic. I'm hoping to have David Wooff, who's a Director of Apprenticeships and Quality at BPP University, join us, and Neil Withnell, who is Associate Dean of Nursing, I think, at Salford University. So I'll just pop back to Laura to see if she's got any sound.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Oh, good. It was something to do with the settings. I thought I was all ready to go. So hi everyone, my name is Laura Stinson and I work at Nottingham Trent University and I lead our Trent Institute for Learning and Teaching. I'm really excited to be here today, so it's nice to see you.
Oh, lovely.
That's fantastic. So we have educators from all over the UK. How did you come together? What brought this? What was the initiation for this project?
Well, if I explain a little bit about the background of the project. So a couple of us knew each other before the project started, if that makes sense. I mean, we know each other through different things like, Scholarship of Teaching and Learning and National Teaching Fellows Networks and work through Advance HE. But I founded the repository, and how it came into being was I was in my own institution, which at the time was Edgehill University, and I was working on a project to disseminate best practice across the institution. And alongside setting up CPD training seminars and workshops and events, things like that, I established an internal repository using just a very simple WordPress site. And it was a space where colleagues in my institution could come and share their innovations, and where they weren't able to engage synchronously in any of the training sessions, then they could go to this space and they could access the very best learning and teaching resources, 24/7, any time of the day or night. And then another part of my role at the time in my institution was I was helping colleagues to secure Advanced HE fellowship, which is gained in recognition of their work in teaching and learning. And what I found while I was doing this particular piece of work was that while my colleagues had really got loads of quality and depth and a real range of work, that wasn't in question at all. Evidencing the impact of their practice and what they were doing, that was proving to be more of a challenge. So I had an epiphany. It just sort of came to me because I realised, were my colleagues been sharing that practice internally on this internal repository, I could get hold of the statistics from the WordPress site and I would share those with my colleagues. And alongside institutional data and other metrics such as student outcomes and written feedback from staff, those staff, my colleagues, were able to use the metrics from the WordPress internal repository to help them illustrate the reach, value and impact of what they did. And that then helped them to gain the fellowship. And then a year on, while I was presenting at a conference on something completely different, I just happened to mention during the session how this work that I was doing at my institution was benefiting staff, because obviously great resources were being shared, but also the staff were able to get this evidence of fellowship, and some of them had used it in performance reviews, some of them had managed to get internal and external promotions. And it was during the conference and then after it, I was absolutely inundated with colleagues from across the country asking if they could share their practice, open education resources, share it on this internal repository I'd created. And obviously they couldn't do that because it was an internal repository. So I recognised that there was a need for this space, really, a nice safe space where colleagues can not only access great resources that will help improve their learning and teaching for the benefit of students, but also it was a way that they could secure recognition for their practice. So I contacted a few of the colleagues on the call today, and working together, we secured a small amount of funding from Advance HE, and using Figshare, which is what the platform's built on, created what became the National Teaching Repository, and that's where it was born, really, with the help of the colleagues here having a belief and could see that this worked, this crazy idea, and it just sort of all sprung from there. And literally, I thought I was being really grand in calling it a national teaching repository, but I'll post a few links in the chat as we go through the next hour or so. But you can see, I've got a page whereby colleagues who want to get involved, who want to become either critical friends or curators, all the institutions and the affiliations that they are from, because anyone, it's completely open access, Alan. It's free to upload, it's dead easy, you can access it anywhere. I did a coffee morning for colleagues in Ukraine before Christmas for Advance HE, so it's there as a resource to support learning and teaching. But the benefit is, because of the Figshare platform and the way it's set up, colleagues can secure recognition for their practice. So I'll shut up now, and the other colleagues on the call, my good friends, can tell you how that is achieved, the types of things that people can upload, how the metrics work, and some of the benefits that people, because we've been going for about two and a half years now, how it's working really. Oh, Dave's joined us as well, so we could probably introduce Dave.
Hello and welcome, Dave. You just dropped in here, and Dawne is talking, but welcome. We're glad you could be here, and I hope other people can talk about like what how they got drawn into this project, and I'm really eager to hear more about the Figshare platform and what it offers.
Yeah.
Go on, I'll
Who's going first?
I seem to have a delay on my side of things. I don't know if you can hear me okay.
Yep, here now.
Yep.
There we go. So Figshare, let's briefly talk about Figshare then. So I think one of the advantages of Figshare that Dawne alluded to before is that you can absolutely upload almost anything to it. So data sets, PowerPoints, presentations, Word documents, video files, you name it, you can upload it. And that's one of the beauties about thinking about it from a learning teaching perspective. There are lots of things and resources that we have and generate that don't sort of fall in that typical like research type paper repository type thing. So Figshare gives us the flexibility, and certainly people that have been depositing things in there over the time, it has been a wide range. We've now got audio clips in there, we've got sound bites, we've got posters, we've got full-on programs, interactive content, static content, and things that people can take away, change and modify to their own practice, and also re-upload in a different format. We see that as well. From a user's perspective, as in somebody that generates content, It's wonderful because what you can also do is you can track the metrics on the back of it. So thinking about the impact that your work has in the sector, on individuals, you've got the ability to actually say, well, hang on a minute, I've done this teaching resource here, I've delivered it in my own institution to my own class, but all of a sudden it's now being used or downloaded by 5,000 different people from 120 different countries. And that's just massive. So on the back of the metrics, I kind of volunteered, as one does on these occasions, to pull a report together and present at the UNESCO World Higher Education Conference. Got invited to do that. And again, we hit 20 of the most deprived countries in the world using the UN statistics are using this repository, which is fantastic. So you're thinking that you're sat at home or you're sat in your office somewhere in the UK, developing a resource, trying to share it with colleagues. But actually, some of the places where it's toughest in the world to access high quality content, people are taking this material, they've got access to it, and they can use it to improve their own practice and directly impact their own students. So I'm going to pause there because I realise I've done quite a bit of talking.
That's what we want. Thank you. And I also understand that, you know, a critical thing is that everything contributed there gets the document object identifier, which is kind of critical. And so I'd like to hear more about, you know, what the appeal and benefit of that is. And so anybody want to jump in or just talk about their experience or their connection to the repository?
I could jump in if you like. It's a very simple one and a nice example really of a different type of thing that you can share. So for over a decade, I've used SlideShare to share presentations and things like that, which has been really quite powerful. But what's unique with this one is the variety, as Dawne's explained, of the different things you can upload. And I'd created a very simple model to try and explain what the different modes of learning are, because people were using different terms for hybrid learning, high flex learning, blended learning, etc., etc. So I created this simple model and then uploaded it to the National Teaching Repository and then shared that out through social media. As you mentioned, Alan, yes, it's got the POI number as well. And that started to be used by people and they started citing me because within there, there's a space for actually the citation that you can just press copy. So it's really easy for people to actually attribute to you as an author or a creator for things that you've done. And as a consequence of that, this very simple model has been placed on various different websites of universities, University of Manchester in Ireland and other places. And out of that, I got invited to write a book chapter about that particular topic. So for me, it's kind of that would never have happened if I hadn't shared it in this way. So that's quite powerful.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I'll follow you up then, Sue, because I think I've got a number of stories around the benefits for this as a colleague working in an institution supporting other people to progress their kind of scholarship practice. So I was working with Laura at Nottingham Trent University, and we were heading up the professional development scheme for awarding fellowships, similar to, as Dawn mentioned, how it arrived at the National Teaching Repository. What we were finding was that people with a kind of research background had lots of metrics and lots of kind of authority to communicate the impact of their work. People working in scholarship were not in that same position, so they weren't able to articulate, you know, the currency, the relevance, and the value of and the impact of their work. So we spent a bit of time thinking about, and actually one of our university said, you know, we ought to be developing a repository to share practice. And I was really keen not to kind of reinvent the wheel. So I kind of had a go, uploaded it within half an hour. I had already started to kind of generate metrics from a small piece of resource that we were reusing. So it was really simple. And so being able to kind of go back to colleagues to say, look, this is evidence of your impact, being able to curate impact for senior fellow membership, where you're having to articulate that you're having an influence on other people's practice. It's a really unique place to be able to say, look at the resources that you have, what's in your kit bag as an educator, who might benefit from sharing that resource, and it's just so intuitive, and it's just so simple to do, and a really nice double bang. So you're sharing the resource, but you're also gaining that kind of currency of your practice. That Laura and I have used the repository in a number of ways, not only to share resources and build up a bank of metrics for our own personal development, to be able to say to other people and colleagues that you're working with that this is a really easy, simple way of doing it. For colleagues who are time poor as well, and who don't have a lot of kind of time to be able to say, this is the impact of my work. But we've also tested out resources. So some of the work that we've been doing on fellowship scheme, we were creating resources to support people going through fellowship. It seemed to land well within our institution, but actually being able to kind of go, what does it look like out there, and tracking the appetite and uptake of a certain amount of resources, we were able to kind of refocus our attention to certain things that landed well.
Thank
So
you
I just had a person walk in my background, but I'm saying a person, my husband. Just to add to what Kate said, I think what we really were keen to do was to sort of practice what we were preaching as well, because we were really pushing the National Teaching Repository with colleagues, and from us uploading our own content, we were able to obviously then say, look, this is the impact that it's having on us. And I know that I used it for my own sort of senior fellow application. We've still had lots of people coming through who've said, actually, I've used that, and that's been a real reason for me now going for the next sort of category of fellowship. And we've got colleagues now sharing. There's recently someone's uploaded a piece on how they use the National Teaching Repository to get their senior fellow. So they've actually uploaded that as a piece that's on the repository now. And I think it's such a positive space, like Kate said, for colleagues to get those metrics and to sort of show that impact. And we've had great sort of results from it as well. So we've been able to make connections and build collaborations with other people outside of our own institutions from what we've uploaded. So it's been a really positive thing for us.
I could maybe add to build on that the next step in terms of leadership as well. So we can invite colleagues to not just contribute individual pieces of work, but for instance, I've invited colleagues into a project. So you can establish projects or collections. And when they are invited to a project, they have more control and ownership over uploading things. And so we had colleagues from our School of Education, for instance, beginning a project on education for sustainable development and sharing case studies on how they apply that in their own teaching practice. And so there are lots of different ways of how people can become involved. So it's not just us or our colleagues sharing individual pieces of work, but it also allows for collaboration and collection of work, and then enables others to take leadership in these areas and create these projects in it. So that is another added dimension to it as well.
And how does Dawne? Can you talk? There's roles of curators within the repository too. How does that work?
Yeah, so the curators aren't there to judge or reject things. They're there to be supportive. So if someone uploads something, the curator will be there just to make sure that it's ethically sound. We haven't had anything that's hasn't been as it should be. Just to check that the keywords are in place, the abstract's as good as it absolutely can be, so that people can find the resource. It checks for anything in terms of, little grammatical errors, those kind of things, just to make sure that, and when we upload, it's as visually appealing as it can be. So sometimes people upload things and they just don't put a front cover on it, for example, which would just be because the repository takes a snapshot of the first page. So if it's got a nice visual, then when people are searching, they can find it quite easily. And then we can also the curators guide and advise around, if somebody's uploading 2 or 3 different pieces of work, they can group them together as a collection, sort of similar to what Nathalie was saying. And just making it more accessible and just supporting them. And what the curators can do as well is then when that's gone live onto the site, so it's all been approved and it's all fine, what we can do is we will tweet about it and we'll disseminate it via social media, and then we can tag the author in, because people don't generally like to shout about their own brilliance, and how great they are, but it's okay for the repository to do it, tag them in, and then they can retweet that and they can share that with their own tribes and followers and people that they know, to really maximise the impact of the fantastic work that they're sharing and making available for the whole community to access. So that's the role of the curators, really. They're not nasty people. They're just like us. Anybody can just get in touch and email any of us, and we just, have a chat. And we really are just like this. We just want people to share things that are great. And, sometimes you might be really worried and think, well, my work isn't good enough to share. But sometimes even just top tips, if you're a new academic or you're a new person in role, and you just share the difficulties of the challenges you've had, if it helps one person, that's all it needs to do, So that's where we come from, really, a place of just trying to help and share and, be open with what we do.
Yeah, I've certainly seen that in action, Dawne, where you're often building confidence of people. So I've spent some time with people who are on apprenticeship programs, developing their kind of academic practice and becoming, early career academics, and talking about some of the presentations that they've done internally with colleagues, and breaking through that, the opportunity to share externally, and then seeing their metrics going up when people are kind of downloading their material. It's really, really fulfilling and really kind of endorsing, the direction of travel that they're taking. That's massive confidence build.
Yeah, I think I would agree. I was going to jump in as well, because when Dawne was saying about, like, you tweet it and share it, and we did a really nice thing last year at our conference where we asked colleagues to upload their presentations that they were doing, so that then it was obviously out there in the wider world. It wasn't just our internal conference, it was being picked up by others in the sector. And Dawne very kindly sort of tweeted that there was lots of great activity happening at NTU that day, and look at all these great presentations. So it gave that nice momentum to colleagues as well, to get that recognition, so that it wasn't just with the internal colleagues that they were getting to showcase those presentations that they were doing on the day as well.
I've liked when we shared a couple links. I'm just wondering if anybody has any like surprising things that came in, or just ones that said, wow, this is why we're doing this, like some more favorite examples.
I think some of I'll jump in here and say, I've got so many favourites, really. But the work that Kate and Laura have shared around principal fellowship and securing fellowship for advanced HEs, that, very simple gamification, sometimes slide decks, card sharing, that you can put, because of the format, the Figshare format, you can upload, as Dave mentioned, PowerPoints, videos, slides, reports, data, audio files, anything. So people can put some really nice interactive things on there as well, so it doesn't just have to be a flat piece of work that's a PowerPoint that you just click through. You can make it really as interactive as you like. So we've got some pieces of work on there at the moment whereby people have put like a whole teaching package on. So it's literally got 4 or 5 things all bundled into one collection that they're directing their students to, but then they're great for anybody else's students to go in and dip in and have a look at as well. But I'll shut up now, because other people will have favourites, and I said I wouldn't do this, and I've done it again already.
Nobody's complaining.
Yeah, well, not.
With the excitement is good to see. So let's. Anybody else want to share a favorite resource that they've seen come in?
If I can maybe just chip in, I think probably one of the best reactions I saw was Lee Fallon with his poster. So Lee did some work around supporting learners with additional needs, and didn't really realise how good the work was that he was doing. So he produced this resource, used it locally. Certainly I've used it in my own practice and used it at institutions I've been at. But at one point it was the most downloaded item from the repository. I'm going back a while, so it may have been beaten to that post by others since then. But actually to tweet that out and say to Lee, do you actually realise the impact your work is having? Because I think what he'd done was he put it up there and then he kind of forgotten about that. And all of a sudden, thousands and thousands of downloads and views of this piece of work was all of a sudden like, whoa, you know, the impact this was having. And again, on a personal note, I know that it made a difference in my own practice. So that's probably the best reaction I've seen at an individual level of someone using it.
Yeah. I could share my screen and show that.
It's the one I was going to suggest, actually.
Yes.
Just put the link in the. I was trying to search for it as we were talking.
It says present with a cross in it. Would that? I can select a screen to share. Is that?
Yes, you can. I would love to see that.
Let's have a little look.
Oh. Yeah.
676 downloads, 4,966 views.
Alan's getting the share ready, but
I'm trying. Let's
it's
see.
okay. We know how this goes. I've been there.
Here we go. Let's see. I'm hoping you can see if it comes through.
Yeah. Here we come.
How's that? There we go. So there's my mouse. So this is the actual repository, and it's housed very safely within Edgehill University, my former institution. And so it's got layers there with the technical directors there. So this is the actual site and the space that you arrive at. You can see here it's had this many views globally and this many downloads since we established it. I'll come back to the stats in a moment, because this is where you can start to see where the global bit is and how it works. So at the top toolbar here, you can search, so you can type different names and things in. So if I put Lee in there and we click OK, it'll come up with a page. So you can search by author, you can search by keyword, you can search by, if you wanted apprenticeship, so you wanted resources around STEM or whatever it is you were after. And then you'll get all the resources that person's uploaded. So if we click on, I think it was this one for Lee's, dead simple to click through, and it's as easy to upload and share as well. So this is from the University of Hull. So this is Lee's poster. You can either just view it here, which is dead easy to do. And there it is. And it was literally a great little poster that says, for working with diverse learners, always do this and avoid that. And he'd been using this for years, and someone suggested to him he should put it onto the repository. And you can see here how many times it's been viewed and how many times it's been downloaded. But because of the altmetric data that Figshare collects as a platform, when you click onto that as well, you can see where in the world, there you go, Lee's work has been accessed, and it gives you a list of the countries here as well, and the types of people, and it's altmetric data, isn't it? So it's great. And so that's something that Lee now has evidence of the impact of his practice. And when you're asked to share, you can upload as, like a PDF or an open document. You can decide what you do. You put a little abstract in, which is what happens there. Any other resources or places and spaces you want to direct people to, you can indicate whether it's had accessibility checks or not. You can put key categories that can sit within a category, and it can have all the different keywords in there that will help people to find it. Oh, and the other thing we should mention is the Creative Commons licensing. So obviously any work that you upload into this space is yours. You retain ownership of it. It doesn't belong to us, it's still yours. And you can decide when you upload and share what level of licensing you want to attach to that. So do you want people to be able to just share it as it is? Do you want them to be able to edit it, adapt it, that kind of thing? So that's there. And the beauty, as Sue mentioned, when the red button here, the cite button, you get the DOI and you get the citation. But the beauty about the Figshare system is, if you don't like that format, say you're wanting to do a paper or a research or a presentation, or even give acknowledgement of using anyone's work, but in this case Lee's work, if you click on the little button here where it says data cite, you type in, so say you want the format to be APA, you can pick and it will change the citation. into that format without you having to retype it all into whichever format it is you want. And there are loads of them, so that's just another feature of the system that's really good. You can share it directly when you've uploaded it, or share it from here if you want to. So there's loads and loads of different ways that you can look at it. And then on the actual site itself, these are examples whereby they probably could have been presented a little bit better, but people put posters on, infographics, models, all sorts of research and resources. Some people put worksheets on, nice little video clip on this one here, posters and things. So there's an awful lot, and they can brand it if they want it to be branded. But on this bit, so this is where anyone can see how impactful the repository is on the whole site rather than just their piece of work. If they click on more statistics, you can see the repositories here. You can search by item, or you can just search by weekly, whatever. But you can see that this week alone, that most activity has been in the United States, 20% has been from the UK. You can see where people have accessed the repository. And what are we on? We're on Wednesday, so it resets on a Monday. And you get a table as well. So you can see all of the different countries where just this week people have accessed the repository. And you can change that, and you can have a look at it, yearly or what have you. But just go in and have a little look around, and have a little play, and we're happy to help. I'll stop sharing now as well. Stop sharing screen. There we go. How's that? Can you see me again?
That's fantastic. Thanks for doing it. And
I'll let you walk through there.
and I'm sure people will look for a long time. Okay, I'm certainly welcome to hear more stories. I have kind of like a little bit of maybe a more difficult question, and so I know there's some contention. We obviously Twitter has played a lot of role in this and how things are shared, and I know there's some national, international, everywhere reconsideration and wondering and a little bit of angst, I know on my part, about how we do this communication, because there's some reluctance to be part of what Twitter has become. And so are you talking about this, or
I'm still on Twitter, but we're going to let Nathalie knows I'm coming to you, because she's come off it. So because we've tried Mastodon and other things. So yeah, I'll pass over to Nathalie and Sue as well, who are our social media gurus. And yeah, look at this.
I wouldn't consider myself
maybe not what you signed up to talk about with the repository, but
it's important, because that's obviously how we disseminate. So it's the ethics of that and how it fits, but go for it, hon.
So I wouldn't consider myself a social media guru, but I stopped using Twitter in early this year, December or January at some point. And yes, it has cost me a lot of professional capital, because if you have several thousand followers and interactions. However, I'm experimenting with different things like Mastodon and Threads, obviously, and LinkedIn, and trying to explore a bit more the whole Fediverse. And one of the things I've noticed, and I just saw an article, I can see if I can find this again, because some people have done research on this actually and shared this on Mastodon, was that while the engagement rates are really high on Twitter, the throughput, or even from the followership to engagement rates, or the throughput from the engagement rates to the actual sources, isn't always a given. So personally, I observed that if I had several dozen retweets and likes, my blog post, for instance, I would share, only still had 1 or 2 reads out of all of this engagement. So that engagement wasn't actually meaningful. On Mastodon, if I get a reaction, it is almost 1-to-1 also engagement with the source. So there is a different culture. And I read, there's some people who have done research, and I tried to find a link and share it with you, that they also found that there is a high percentage of, so there was people who had tens of thousands of followers, and they found that there was a high percentage, a quarter or something, that via bots, And then another even more significant percentage, and I would have to make up the numbers, but it was higher than even that, were people who hadn't used their Twitter accounts in a year or longer. And so while the numbers appear much bigger, the actual impact of the numbers is not necessarily the same. So, and in our institution, for instance, when we apply for promotion, there are two indicators we have to talk about. One is esteem and one is impact. And all these nice and shiny retweets were very good for my esteem indicator. You know, I could have all the screenshots and the numbers and say, yay. However, what they don't do is actually showcasing the impact. So, well, people are aware of my work, but what are they actually doing with it? What does it actually do? And I think this is where we need to start thinking about meaningful engagement. And how do I know that what I share actually does anything, you know? And so I think this is something I'm still playing around with. And I think we don't have really identified a new home yet as the academic community. I don't know, Sue, you're much more experienced in this than I am. I don't know what you say.
So one of the things I'd say about Twitter, in fact, any social media really, is it's only as good as the people that you're connected to. So you choose who you want to connect to and who you want to block. And yes, in your stream, you can sort of toggle between the two, and it will keep trying to get you to have the stuff that's not necessarily people you're connected to. But, you know, I've been a big user of lists in Twitter for years. So you create your own communities, and that vein, I think Twitter's still very, very useful. And certainly I completely agree with you. It's not the esteem, how many, you know, sort of retweets, it's the interactions, that dialogue, people asking questions about it or thanking you for sharing that, and you can see that they've gone on to something else. On my list of long summer jobs to do when we thought we've got months and weeks and whatever, is actually to look at Figshare, because we do need to speak to them about their sharing buttons, because they've currently got Facebook, LinkedIn, email, and they've still got it down as a Twitter rather than X, or as I like to call it, Twitster. It needs updating, but of course missing from that is being able to share it through other means. So, you know, is it possible to have extra sharing buttons? And Threads is an obvious one. Mastodon, if that can work, and I've dabbled with Mastodon but found it tricky, so I'm not sure whether that's a feasible thing. But the other interesting social media space that I've been using is Blue Sky, and that's really interesting because I'm reconnecting with people from early days of me using. So if you've come across Howard Rheingold, you know, it's great having those conversations, and he's resharing things that he did when he used to have his social media lab for learning, and, you know, thinking about the use of social media, but lots of other things as well. He's a real tech guru. So it's because, I guess, similar to Mastodon in the sense that there's a smaller communities, then you're going to see that interaction, and as they start to grow, that's when things kind of sort of get a little bit diluted. So interesting times, and, you know, there's Threads is not completely ready. They launched that way before they probably initially intended to, but because of the problems going on, thought they ought to get it out there. They've promised hashtags in there, but it's not ready yet. And yeah, so we will see really. But you know, I think LinkedIn's also a very powerful tool, and it's worth thinking about from a professional context, which, given the nature of the things that we're sharing, is absolutely the place, and it's certainly made a big impact on my career over the years. You know, and it's giving people the confidence, I think. And I always tell people that, you know, no matter what social media site you choose to take on next, is, you know, spend some time listening to what people are doing or watching what people are doing, because that's how I learned, you know. And you kind of think, oh, what should I say? What kind of format do I make it, you know, very professional, or can I have something a bit more personal in it? And of course it varies from space to space, and there's always a mixture of both in all the spaces that I've tried. So I think we're all in the learning curve, and we've just got to keep sharing our stories. Well, what works, if you can connect with people in your community, that's great, because people often say, how do I build my community, and, personal learning networks, that sort of concept, that is very individual, because we're all going to have different people that we find useful to connect with because of the nature of our role, our disciplines, but obviously there's going to be some crossovers as well. And, I always secondly recommend to people that they join a new space, connect with people that you trust and know, and then look at who they're following, who's following them, and see if you can then develop your network through those connections. And it's an ongoing process, really. So using social media to then share things from the National Teaching Repository is certainly going to help that ripple effect, for sure. Yeah. And it's not just sharing your own stuff, obviously it's sharing other things that have gone on there. I see things and think that's great, it's really useful, let's get that out. And I think that's the whole ethos behind all of this, that we want to be open educators that help each other, and we feel safe to ask questions or, contribute or give feedback or ask for feedback on the work that we're doing.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you for taking my diversion. It's just it's on our minds along with other acronyms that I'm not going to introduce, but I really appreciate the way you described it, Sue. And of course, whatever platform you come across, Howard Rheingold or Sue Becks, they're eventually, if you have some interaction with them, their persona carries above the platforms. It's going to be messy, but let's get back to talking about what's anything on the horizon for the repository. Any new efforts? Do you see any new developments or things that you're going to be trying to activate through the repository?
We did for the first time last year, we had some awards. So we were, to try to support and recognize the work where people have shared. And we had a number of those. And I was delighted to see that a handful of the people we'd actually awarded to had used those in things like Kate Awards, National Teaching Fellowships and promotions, and secured, associate professorships and things, because they, not just because they've said they've won a National Teaching Repository OER award, but we had them for different things, so it was like engagement, supporting others, number of downloads and views, those kind of things. One thing I wanted to mention that I haven't mentioned so far, and we haven't, is at the University of Glasgow, where Nathalie is, one of her colleagues, Gabriella and Willie, and Gabriella, congratulations, she just got her senior lecturership, and Willie's just become a professor, I believe, and they've been heavily involved in supporting the work of the National Teaching Repository. What they've done a lot of is sharing their students' work, so those raw embryo ideas that the students have had to help their students to build confidence. And they've obviously shared that and got recognition within their own institution from that work that they've done. So that was one thing we've not mentioned about doesn't just have to be academics work. We have the range of people submitting and sharing on the repository aren't just people with doctorates and things. We've got learning services, library support, people doing postgraduate certificates, students, master's students, anyone and everybody can share in that space. So yeah, that wasn't answering your question, but it started with the awards, didn't I, really? So I think the awards are something that we definitely want to continue with. We did have an idea, and I might let Dave or someone pick up with this because I'll just talk too much, but about putting some of compiling some of the best pieces of the work into a sort of compendium, so that we could, well, I'll shut up because I'll let Dave or somebody else talk it through, because I'll just end up talking again.
This is where I sit here and say nothing. No, thanks for that, Dawne. So in terms of, maybe a journey back into history, one of the first things Dawne and I ever collaborated on was a piece of work for the Higher Education Academy, as it was then, and it was a compendium of effective practice in higher education. Very short sort of snippets with many contributors from all over the world, predominantly in the UK, but again, sort of reached out beyond that. So it's sort of taking that idea of somewhere where you can actually get something, again, maybe that sort of digital index style, bring it together into something that sort of keeps it together in one place, could be thematically arranged, maybe makes navigation easier for different types of people, so different types of users. Again, picking up on what Sue's just said about sort of sharing that resource, open access, and making sure that those that want to access it in a different way are able to do so. Some people can very easily navigate through the space, and again, personally believe that the NTR is an easy space to find what you want to look for if you know what you're looking for. But maybe thinking about a compendium going forwards, so just a collection of works. Again, because of the way the NTR is organised, we could do it thematically by, say, CPD or by fellowship or by whatever it happens to be, or we could do it chronologically by, you know, this year's compendium contains this amount of work. I mean, I put the stats in the chat here about the actual volume of activity that the NTR's had in the last 12 calendar months from today's date. You know, over 160,000 views, 31,500 plus downloads from 149 countries, and that's in the last 12 months alone. So if we can find different ways of disseminating information and making it so that people can connect with it, then it sort of takes it beyond the social media as well. So that's certainly something we can give them some thought to. Have we got it up and running yet? No. Is it in its embryonic stage? Yes. So watch this space, and hopefully we'll have one out there.
Yeah.
I'm going to say sometime.
Yeah, and the idea. Oh, sorry, Dave.
That's it.
Oh yeah, the idea is as well, we could get the curators or anyone else who would like to join us and become a critical friend or a curator. They could then get evidence, you know, of curating, pulling the compendium together, editing, you know, and getting experience of a different kind that then can benefit their professional development in a different way. You know, it's not quite like a book. You know, it's not as formal as that, but just putting things together. You know, a nice cover, indexing, and they can learn some skills with support from other colleagues. You know, just so. But and as we're talking, you know, if anyone's sat out there listening and thinking, well, they could be doing this, they're missing a real trick there. You know, why are they not? You know, please just get in touch and let us know, because we are, when I say we're sort of making this up as we go along, you know, we're just doing what we think is right, what feels right. And so far people have joined the journey, and it seems to be going really, really well. But I'm sure there's other ways that we can capitalise upon what we're doing, you know, and it just needs that bright spark out there to point us in the right direction. And everybody is literally welcome to join it, you know.
We did also talk about doing some sort of event, but we're not sure what that would look like, because obviously it's online. But whether we would do an online event or an in-person event, so watch this space. I'm sure there's plenty to come.
When we talk about the authors of some of the pieces, but how they found it, you know, uploading, sharing the benefits that's been to their practice, the benefits where people have got in touch with them and said, I've really used your resource and it's really helped me to, you know, change my practice, or my students have benefited, you know, immensely, and you know, so many have now got, you know, first class honours degrees, or, you know, they've been retained, because there aren't just things there in the space that are around teaching and learning. There's things there around student support, you know, and supporting students to stay on programme, and students where they have challenges, you know, so there's all those resources as well. You know, if there's anything around learning and teaching, supporting students, it's in there in one way, shape or form. And if there's something missing, likewise again, and you think they haven't got any of this and you've got it, please feel free to get in touch and share it, and we can get it uploaded for the benefit of the community. See, I'm talking too much again there now.
Well, you have to stop saying that, Dawne.
I do, yeah.
If I can take that one step a little bit further as well, it's also, I think, important to say that we've got international curators as well. So again, we talked about it being a national teaching repository and the international aspect that it has. And we've also got work that's been deposited in there from colleagues that work overseas. So they bring obviously different lens and different perspective. So keen that it's not just seen to be a UK-based entity. Yes, it's set out like that, but very quickly it's morphed beyond that. So again, to our colleagues that are overseas that are thinking, well, actually, that kind of doesn't work in my context, or in my context is something that we could really do with, or we do a lot of this, then equally, just to echo Dawne, you know, please do get in touch.
And I'm wondering too, you've probably seen situations where someone has come across a resource and then decided that they would want to like reciprocate and share something. Is there evidence of that? Do you track anything like that, or anecdotally?
I don't think we track it per se. There's definitely instances where people have uploaded like a second or third version of something that they've taken off the repository. So it's been, in some cases, taken to a different subject discipline, if you will. Or in other cases, it's been updated. And I've certainly seen that in some of the content that sits in there. But again, it's that sort of fostering the collaborative nature about everything that's in there, where people are taking it and going, actually, I've taken it and it works better in my context this way. So what I'll then do is share it here so others can benefit from that. And there are versions of different things in there as well. I think one thing, just jumping back to Dawne's demonstration as well, what you can also do is you can update versions in Figshare. So you can actually have the same DOI and it will still link, and you can put an updated version in the same space. So that's a really useful feature that it has.
Yeah, that's commendable. I'm the sense is that this is fueled a lot by like informal collaboration of people just on their energy and interest in the project. And so that's, you know, it's not like a big giant government funded thing where people are there because they get money. It's because they're interested in sharing these teaching practices. So I really want to congratulate everybody here. And also maybe, you know, you mentioned for people to get involved, and I think we shared the links for submitting. Is there any other information you want to put out there for people who might want to become or affiliated with the repository?
Yeah, I can paste some more things into the chat. If they reach out on Twitter, you know, do a DM or post, or find the details on the site, that kind of thing, or just email me direct. You know, I'm Dawne Irving Bell at bpp.com. Then we can get in touch, and you know, we can, you know, have a chat with them and see what level of engagement they want to get involved with. Sometimes it's just a case of pointing out something that's not working on the site, or something that's wrong, or something we can improve. They can, and if they want to become a critical friend, we can add their affiliation and name onto the ever-growing list. You know, I should say as well, just think about the DOI where you can update. So if you have something updated and there's a new legislation comes out and you want to update the same resource, when the V1 and the V2 is added, you keep the same DOI, but you also keep the metrics. You don't lose the metrics, which is absolutely key as well. And the other thing Figshare has on the site is you're able to put a profile up. So similar to if you've got one of your, and you can link it to your ORCID ID if you're into research, that kind of thing. So it's got so many features. But that's a good point, Sue, you mentioned before jumping. But see, just sparking ideas in my head already. I can contact Figshare because they are really, really good. They're brilliant at getting in touch and supporting the working of the site. To say, you know, you need to update all your little social media buttons, and you know, and they're really responsive. And I'm sure they'll have a programmer there somewhere who'll go. They'll probably be already working on it, you know. But yeah, so yeah. I don't know if I answered the question or not there, but.
No, that's it. There's lots of ways, and we'll be sure to share. You know, you can find the repository, and you can see the action and get in touch, and certainly we hope that we stimulate some more interest in the repository.
Brilliant. I'll share that in Twitter. I'll just find the Twitter handle. Yeah, you guys talk while I do that.
I think from an institutional point of view, what we found useful, and I've gone from NTU to another institution and kind of spread the contagion there. It's having people who will endorse that kind of journey, will embed it into practice. So when we was at NTU, it was about saying, okay, well, you're having the internal conference. The next thing you need to do is share it on the NTR before the conference. So the delegates of the conference are also picking up your resource through the NTR rather than a different shared folder. So you're beginning to build metrics in that practice, but it's also then saying, you know, are your educational developers part of the kind of NTR story? Are they kind of seeing different opportunities for you to kind of share materials that you're using in the everyday? And I think, Dawne, that's what I wanted to kind of say. It's materials that you know constantly going across your desk that you're constantly reaching out to. They're the kind of really valuable assets that you want to be sharing on the NTR. That it's not about the kind of whistles and bells stuff. It's the everyday stuff that's making a huge impact. And I think, you know, that's what takes the kind of fear out of the people who are just starting their kind of scholarship journey, and the people who've been on that scholarship journey for a long time are still kind of figuring out, you know, who they are as an educator, and having a place to kind of curate that and being able to kind of sell yourself as an educator. I think that's really, really strong thing, and we don't have that kind of established exchange in scholarship.
And I want to pick up, I really like that you said that, Kate, because I think what you're talking about in the first part is that when people tie the using of the repository with other programs and things, that it goes beyond sharing because it's the right and good thing to do. And yeah, they'll get some metrics, but also if it's folded into a conference activity or a workshop or professional development, that just becomes a natural, and it works for the program too, to be able to track all the materials. So that's a really successful organizational strategy.
That's good.
Well, I want to thank everybody for tuning in late in the day for our colleagues in the UK, early in the day over here. And we're just excited that you shared the National Teaching Repository. And we certainly hope that some more folks from OE Global sort of get involved and think about the ways that they could use what's been shared here.
Yeah. Oh. Thank you for inviting us, Alan.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great to see you. Nice to see you, Sue. Sue and I we've crossed paths in all the platforms, and so and one day maybe in the same continent.
Yeah, and we're also hoping that Neil, who hasn't been able to join us, his dog's okay. And I should have mentioned as well, we have other colleagues, Scott Turner from Canterbury and Liam Bullingham, who's not able to join us today, who's just moved jobs from Edgehill to Exeter University. He got a promotion as well, so there you go. But yeah, so those colleagues have been invaluable in helping all of this to happen. But inviting us today is brilliant. Thank you, Alan.
Oh, sure. No,
and anyone else who wants to get in touch, get involved, just get in touch.
And for people watching this now or later, I just want to say, we're looking for other projects and people to share about here through this platform, and we hope to do a lot more of these in the next couple months. Okay, I'm going to play some exit music, and we'll go off stream and get about our days and.